No. I'm here with Gwen. Gwen is a friend of mine and a hypnotherapist, and she's one of the most knowledgeable hypnotists that I know, so I'm really excited to share with you one of the chats that we regularly have through Skype or when I come over here. I'm very excited to share this with you because she knows a lot about how your unconscious works and how the brain works. And Gwen she is a hypnotherapist. She lives in this tiny village here called Rheinfelden, just outside of Basel, and she built her hypnotherapy practice here. And you started out with helping people with weight loss, I think, originally, and now you have loads of clients for all kinds of different stuff. What's kind of the top 3 things you help people with?
Weight loss, pain, fears.
Biggie, 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 can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me, and I just love your flashy ways. I guess that's why they broke in your soul, babe.
You probably already know it. Well, that's not.
Yeah.
We'll cut there. So let's get into also like what is hypnosis. Mm-hmm. So what is hypnosis? What would your definition be?
Well, I think we all are constantly in one form of hypnotic state or another.
Right.
Like they say, children until the age of 6, 7, 8
mm-hmm.
are completely in a full hypnotic trance all
mm-hmm.
the time.
Walking around.
Well, this is not only that, but if you look at children and
mm-hmm.
When they play, they have a doll here and a doll
mm-hmm.
here, and they're totally involved. And
yeah.
and they're absolutely convinced that those dolls are real.
Yeah.
I mean, they are real, but they're not alive. Or even my daughter, she would come and say, "Look, my doggy, what he's doing." And I think like, "Oh God, that's a soft toy. You're moving it." "No, it's my doggy." And she
right.
would really fight. It's her dog.
Yeah.
And kids believe those things. And I think we consistently go in and out of different trances. Like when you're driving a car, you're in a trance because
right.
you have it so automated that your first driving lesson was like, "Oh shit, I need to go left," and then it's brakes mm-hmm. and, look and drive and mm-hmm. shift and then you're still scared because the driving instructor is next to you and now mm-hmm. you turn left and you think about your to-do list for today, you think about the meeting you have later.
Or you're already at home and you're thinking like, how did I get here? Yeah.
Exactly, how did or we drive long stretches without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And this is a kind of a hypnotic state. So we have a lot of...
I think that's really important because for people that might think like hypnosis is this thing where people are like that,
sleep.
Yeah. That it's a very normal thing.
Yes.
I think this is one of the things that Richard and John, Richard Bandler and John Grinder got an argument about.
Yes.
That Richard, I think he said like everything is hypnosis. Like you're now watching this, you're in a trance.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, your unconscious is in a trance.
Yes.
And in every situation you're in a type of trance. Like you said, if you're traveling or whatever, and that John Grinder said, no, hypnosis doesn't exist, something like that. I think it was, and I think it's either one, or it doesn't exist and it's all made up, or you're always in a trance. But in different types of trances, different states of trances.
Remember last night I gave you the quote from Milton Erickson, who said that most people are in a trance of disempowerment and our job is to transform that into a trance of empowerment.
Right.
And I think that's really what it is.
That's good. Can you do that again?
But Milton Erickson says that, or he said, because he's not alive anymore, so Milton Erickson said that most people are in a trance of disempowerment, and our job is to transform that into a trance of empowerment. And I think that's really our jobs, no matter if you're doing NLP, which is where hypnosis is so very integrated, because we work with the inner pictures, and what is that? It's a form of hypnosis. And it's so important to realize that it's just going from one level to another. It's not, and I don't believe people are broken. And I have people coming to me, they come from a psychologist and like, oh, I know my childhood, and because of my experience of childhood, I'm broken, and I realize I made all those life choices. And I feel, no, it's good, because your voids drive your values. And the real values we have today, they come because at some point something was missing, and there is nothing wrong with this. This makes us unique as people.
Mm-hmm.
And then just seeing it, okay, this is a trance where I'm in and I can get out of it just as easily as I fall asleep. I fall asleep, I wake up, that's a trance too.
So it's whatever is not like you want it in your life?
Yes.
Maybe some real intensive medical things not in that picture. Like if you miss a leg, maybe it's not easy to regain a leg with hypnosis. But a lot of other stuff that's not in your life at the moment or is not like you want it is part of this unempowering trance, or how did Milton call it again?
Trance of empowerment,
disempowering.
Disempowering,
So it's kind of the way you're used to living, which doesn't help you always.
Exactly.
And this is something that you told me about that I find interesting, like the people that overeat. You work with a lot of people that want to lose weight. Can you tell me maybe a bit about their trance of being disempowered, which is actually has a positive intent, as you mentioned?
Yes, the example I had yesterday, where we did the parts integration, where you just say there are two parts, one part wants this and the other one wants that, and you can often see that in conversation, also in business. You have this where people try to balance things, and they say, okay, on one side I want whatever, maximize profit, on the other hand I want to do something good, some non-profit work. So it's always the two parts. And for people that want to lose weight, it's on one side they want to lose weight, and on the other side they like eating. And there with most people, and it always kind of chunks up to something different. For her it was peace, and for others it's happiness, it's fulfillment, it's whatever
that you gain from the eating.
Yes, but it's always the same thing. It's just like the same part, the same side of the coin, the different sides of the same coin that drives the overeating. And very often it's just bad habits or just very good sales from the side of the...
So they either got brainwashed by sales, or they brainwashed themselves in a way to get into this trance or this state in which eating is the go-to behavior.
Yes, and there are different factors. Like for example, we all had the thing when we visited our grandparents as kids. So I know from me, and a lot of my clients confirm that with grandma you could watch as much TV as you wanted to. She had a big cabinet full of sweets. You would get the food you want, and you can do whatever you want. So it's kind of positive. And generally in society, eating together has a positive feel to it. So we sit down as a family, you sit down and you have a meal together. In Indian or in the Jewish culture, the priests weren't allowed to eat with the rest, or they would be unpure and stuff like that. So eating has a cultural impact. And so eating is it can become like an addiction, because it makes you feel good and you have a positive anchor on food.
So then it's not really the actual food that does the trick, because I think this is important to understand also why hypnosis can do so much, because it's not the food that gives you it's like the response to the food that makes it addictive. And this response is only in your head.
Yes, and I think as human beings, the main function our brain does, it's a meaning giver. So we always try to give meaning to everything. And so if I label food as, oh, it releases stress, so I use it as stress relief. But I can also use running a marathon as stress relief. So, and you have a lot of slim people, for them sports would be stress release, and then you have a lot of chubby people, and for them eating is stress release. And
so they're after the same things, but they have different means of getting it.
Yes, they have different coping mechanisms, and that's what makes the difference, and you can switch that.
So how would you go about that? So it's not specifically about overeating, obviously. I mean, you can have whatever behavior you want to change. Fill in the blanks.
It can be procrastinating, it can be ignoring certain tasks on your to-do list.
So even behind procrastinating, behind all of those things, there is a positive intent, something you get out of doing that unconsciously. Are people fully unconscious about it, or do you speak to people that also say like, well, I know I do it because of whatever?
Well, most people don't really think much about it, but if you talk to them about it, they know why they're overeating. And I tell people when they come, I don't need to tell you how to lose weight. We all know it's more exercise
more,
eat less, and or eat more of the right stuff. There's a very nice model that I give to people. It's from a hypnotist called Cal Banyan, and he has this what drives the addiction. And this is kind of, we have this kind of negative emotion, or any kind of it can be something huge like, oh God, I saw the Second World War, or it can be something small. Oh God, it's so boring today at the office, what do I do?
Right.
No matter how big or small, but it's some kind of negative feeling, and we try to get kind of diverted. We want to think of something else. We want to be entertained. We want to, and in today's culture, it's such an entertainment culture. We all have our phones, and we get distracted, and so we want some kind of distraction from that negative emotion. So his model is, you have the negative emotion and you want the distraction. So this distraction that you don't think of, this negative emotion, is what drives the addiction. So if you're an overweight person, or procrastinating, or nail biting, or alcohol drinking, so you have this negative emotion and you want to distract from that negative emotion, so you would drink, you would do, and then you have this cycle. And then the next level would be, you would have frustration, and frustration is a secondary emotion. He has a very cool book, it's called what is it, the meaning of feelings or something like that. I'm not quite, but he kind of says that emotions are good because they're a feedback mechanism. There are no good or bad feelings, they're just supposed to tell you something.
Signals for either change or keep doing what you're doing.
Exactly, yes. And so the last one would be depression then, where depression, not the clinical one.
I see this with a lot of people, that they try to solve the problem, as you say, by getting distracted or doing something instead of fixing the actual thing that will change.
And very often, if you would just allow that negative feeling just to come up for just 10 seconds, it dissolves the desire for the addiction. So
just experiencing that negative feeling, or do you need to do something with it
just
afterwards?
Becoming aware of it. If you just say, okay, and that's a task my weight loss clients get before they eat something. They need to put the food down, write down what they're going to eat. It's whatever, 1 kilo of Swiss raclette cheese. And then question themselves, what's happening around me? Not what do I feel, because if I ask what do I feel, or I have cravings, I need food. I'm hungry, yes. But what happens around me? So because the feeling comes from outside. So if I have a deadline at work, and I have stress because of this, okay, so I'm really stressed because of the deadline, and that's why I need to keep on eating.
Right, so they start noticing, oh, it's actually because this and this is happening around me now.
And just by becoming aware, God, I'm overeating because I have this deadline, I need to hand in this report.
That already changes the
And
desire.
that already just, it kind of releases, it's like it just releases the tension. I had a guy coming to me, he would eat 4 to 6 rolls of Mentos a day in the office as a stress relief. And it's just, seriously, it was one session getting rid of that, and we didn't need all the other weight loss sessions after that. We still did it, but we finished the whole course. But for him, just getting rid of that was...
And he did it by every time he wanted to pop a Mentos in his mouth, he went like, what is happening around me now?
No, we did something else. That was just in a hypnosis session with some positive... suggestions where we just worked with that. But just getting aware of how bad it really is, like oh yeah, it's just some sugar. On the other hand, just becoming aware it's a stress relief mechanism.
I think it's similar in what you do with NLP, like when someone has a bad memory, or even if they're like anxious for a meeting, they still have to do a presentation. When you go into the details of what they actually do in their minds, thinking about it, just making that into a conscious process. I had this one lady, it was during one of my my workshops, and I could hear her, it was before the break, and she was saying to someone else like, yeah, you know, I have a fear of public speaking, or something like that, and I overheard her. So
she was public speaking afterwards.
Yeah, exactly, because I was, just before the break started, I went to her and I said like, hey, I heard you say that. Do you want to change that? And she went like, yeah, if you can. And during the break we worked on it. And after the break she did beautifully in front of the group. But the thing was, in speaking with her, I asked her like, what do you do in your mind when you think about that I'm going to put you in front of the group after the break? And at first she went like, and then we went into what she was thinking about. And actually what she thought was like the audience or the people in my workshop looking at her like, And it was, we had to dive in a bit, but it ended up that she was imagining them having guns and shooting at her.
Oh, wow.
And the bullets were going like that
God,
as she was speaking.
Yes.
And I was like, God, if I would think that in my head before I wouldn't even want to go and in front of the group after the break.
Yes.
So just becoming aware of that already changes so much.
Absolutely.
And if you know about NLP, it's the submodalities already start changing when you kind of take the distance and think about what it is that you're doing.
I think a big step there is becoming aware of the process of you doing that.
Which is usually an unconscious process.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is what I tell a lot of people too, is generally we have trouble because we look into the past and remember all the hurts, and we spend so much time in the past remembering the hurts, because when I was in 3rd grade, that kid told me I'm stupid, and we can really relive that and make that so big. Or in 2nd grade you had to speak in front of the class and they threw Kleenex at you or something. And people remember that and blow up this picture so big.
Yeah.
And that's part of the trouble. The other part is because now in the here and now we're safe. Yeah. But then we project into the future and we make those pictures and even sounds of all those horrible things that could possibly go wrong. Yeah. And we blow this up, and so we're stuck in the here and now. We're never actually here. Yeah. But we just remember the bad and we project the bad. Yeah. And it's like our brain is wired to look into the future and to plan the future. That is what made the survival of human race possible. Yeah. And today the wiring we have, it doesn't serve us well anymore, because we're not living in the Stone Age. We don't need to start collecting grain for the winter to survive, but we need to project into the future. We need to use it as a planning tool rather as a tool to kind of beat ourselves up. And then you kind of get into this thing, I don't know if Richard coined this idea, but the idea of the user manual for your brain. Yes, for your brain, yes. So we know a lot about how your brain works, and prehistorically it has been working on a kind of autopilot. Yes. But then there's a lot of behavior of people that is not really fit anymore for today's society. Yes. I call this, like, I teach people a lot about the amygdala, which triggers like your fear and your flight responses. And it was very useful in the Stone Age. Like if there was a saber-toothed tiger around the corner, you better be able to go into fight or flight response. Yes. But then what that part does, which you know all about, I know, because we speak about this a lot, but what it does is it shuts down a large portion of your brain in order to be able to be better at fighting and fleeing. But in today's society, when people get into stress, which you also work a lot with people that have a lot too much stress, pretty much, when you start getting into this state of fight and flight, it's useless. And then I usually say, like, in today's society, there's this chronic scarcity of saber-toothed tigers. Like, they're not around anymore, but your brain is still wired to work as if there were saber-toothed tigers. Yes. And when you start having this kind of user manual for your brain, you can start to use these same mechanisms in a way that it supports you, which I think is what you mentioned about this quote from Milton. Yes. What I think we have been talking about now beautifully is this state of kind of disempowerment that a lot of people are in. How do you change this? When someone comes to you and says, like, I'm stressed, or because we already talked about losing weight, but if someone is like, I have way too much stress or whatever, how would you work with that? Well, I think a big part what I do is teaching people about their brain, how it works, what happens in specific situations, like they're in a stress situations, because... I'm sorry, but I love this. I hope you're kind of paying attention to these things. I don't know if you already know a lot about hypnosis, but if you ask a wishy-washy hypnotist with the ropes and everything, like, how do you work with someone? They go like, I fix their stressful energies and we release through these processes. And Gwen actually says, like, I teach them how their brain works. Yes. And I think this is an important part of how hypnosis actually works. It's you learn about how your unconscious works through experience. Do go on. Yes. Yeah, sorry. Well, not only and how you and why you react in certain ways is the client I had this morning. I explained just what I said. You know, you look into your past, you see all those horrible things. You look into your future, you think everybody will laugh at you, nobody will like you, and none of it is true, because right now you're here with me in my office, you're sipping a coffee, and you're safe. Right. I'm not attacking you. You're safe. And if you just explain to people how the brain works, that you're actually wired to live in the time of the saber-toothed tiger, and your brain functions that way, and you need to kind of use this adaptive process to really adapt to today's world. And our world is changing so fast. And it's getting faster every day, and we're getting more, every second we're getting further and further away of the saber-toothed tiger. But our brains still work like that, and a lot of the stress we have is because we don't know how our brain works, and we don't know how to switch off. In today's world, if you, any kind of executive job, you have an iPhone or maybe still Blackberries or some kind of smartphone, and you're there to be reachable 24/7. And you have, if you have staff and somebody writes to you at Saturday night, 2 o'clock in the morning, you'll probably answer at 2:03 because you kind of look up, answer, and you answer. And this is a small thing. You think, oh, it's only 10 seconds. But it's a big stress factor in your life.
How come? What does that do to the brain? Like,
well, it's because you have this interruption of sleep. You have also this interruption of kind of this free time and unplugged time. And one of the things I tell people is just have a certain day a week where you totally unplug, where you don't, where you have your devices off and you don't respond to anything work-wise. So maybe, but then rather go take your girlfriend or wife or someone to the movie theater rather than sitting at home in front of the TV. But do something totally different. Go hiking, do something, but unplug and replenish your.
I do this with someone, with my girlfriend, once a week.
Yes, one unplugged day, and I think also the kind of light. The new iPhone has this soft light you can program in.
For the evening.
And I think a lot of those lights, a lot of sleep trouble people have is because they sit with, maybe even with their laptops in bed, having it on the brightest mode because it's easier to see, and turn it off, and then you try to tell your brain sleep. And it's like, but it's daytime, how can I sleep?
And people are not aware of that effect. Like those lights have like a physical effect on your brain. Because your brain is programmed to understand how light works.
Your brain is programmed at 5 o'clock in winter, it gets dark, it's time for bed. Because we used to live in this total light cycle and not have fake lights, or not that kind of bright fake light. So you just have to turn on the candles instead. It's good for your relationship. It's romantic.
Well,
it is, and it's healthier for you.
Cool. And in using hypnosis, because you do, I mean, you are a hypnotherapist. So how do you use hypnosis? Because you explain a lot about how your brain works. How do you then work with hypnosis with your clients?
Well, I have this mix of NLP and hypnosis. So I have this part where I teach people, okay, you take a picture of something negative and you know, you make it smaller, put it further away, shoot it with a rubber band, whatever.
They start to understand how their brains
operate. They understand how their brains operate, but obviously I also have where I take people to the chair, to this chair.
The hypnosis chair.
The hypnosis chair, and I basically tell them, close your eyes, relax. And get them into a trance. And then you can either work.
Can you compare it also with like when you do for someone who might not know how hypnosis works? Is it similar to when you meditate really deeply? It's a bit different because it's guided.
Yes. I think
I think maybe people that don't know about hypnosis might think like it's some weird state in which all your secrets come out and you have no control anymore and you start talking like a chicken and stuff like that.
Well, if I ever find...
That would make your job a lot very funny.
I think that would be really cool, and I always tell people I can't make you do anything you don't really want to do, because if I could do that, my teenager's room would be clean. He would do as I say, which he doesn't. So until I find out how to do that, my teenager does what he wants to do. But
so your unconscious is kind of like a teenager.
Yes, it does what it wants. So in hypnosis, I can't make you do what you don't want to do. So I can't make you be a bank robber. Unless bank robbing is your hobby. Then I would have trouble getting the money, because it should be profitable for me if I make you rob banks. So you wouldn't give me the money if it's not your hobby. And you're kind of the Robin Hood, like a bank robber who donates the money to his hypnotherapist. So if this is nothing you would want to do, you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So if you're in hypnosis and the fire alarm goes off, you're right away, you're here.
Yeah.
And it's
because you're more of yourself when you're you're more in touch with your entire you. Would that be it?
Yes, and you're more in control of your emotions. Actually, in hypnosis, you're more in control of what is happening inside you. So you're kind of, it's a very weird feeling actually, because you're kind of more alert. You feel what's happening around you, and somehow you allow the change to happen. And a lot of people say,
because it's something that you want.
Because it's something that you want, yes. And I couldn't. And at the moment in Germany and Switzerland, we have a lot of hypnosis shows, and people come to me and say, yeah, but he forgot his name, or he believed he's naked. And I say, well, you know, they don't show that the hypnotist worked with those people before the show. They don't show that. They just see which they do. They test them out. They do a rigid screening whom they take. And yes, I have clients, they're really easy to do change with. They're really very, very easy to work with, and others take a few sessions before real change happens. But of course, the hypnotist on stage chooses people that
I always say, like, the people that get on the stage and do the chicken thing and stuff like that, they're usually, I think so, that they're usually the people that when they would get like drunk, they would also act out very much, because they're like, they already have this inside, and they're looking for an opportunity, like being drunk, to act it out, or being on a stage and the hypnotist and the entire audience expecting that you'll do funny stuff.
Yes.
And
And you have in that situation, adrenaline is up, and it's easy to want to switch off. Yeah. And like you said, there are two types of people really. The type who is looking for an excuse. I would never, I'm too straight in real life, but there I have the excuse. So he hypnotized me. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So
it's
you
not
have
my fault that I'm doing weird stuff.
Exactly. Or it's the other type that would do it anyway, with or without hypnosis. They're looking for 2 minutes of fame on the stage.
So if you're going to a hypnotist show and going like, I'm not being hypnotized, you won't.
Yeah, exactly. So
you'll be completely safe.
You'll be absolutely safe, yes. The thing is, and that's the difference between hypnosis, where you know you're hypnotized, you can really fight against it. Then the other part is you have this conversational hypnosis, which is then more used in, say, advertisement, or if you watch, if you follow the presidential campaigns in America, where people are very, very well trained.
Using specific patterns and things in their normal language.
Exactly.
I have a nice example. I don't think I shared this with you already. A nice example about someone using the doing a chicken thing conversationally. Yeah. What he said to his group. So I was and he said to his group, like, well, for instance, what you can do in hypnosis is you can make people like act out like a chicken, like that. And he did that in front of the group. And I think like 3 or 4 people in the group went like, and they started acting out like chicken. Yeah. And the thing is, conversationally, he made them act like chicken, and those people in the audience will reason to themselves like, no, this is something I thought was funny as a joke to do that. Yes. But the suggestion to act like a chicken was planted by the guy in front of the group. Yes. Now that has pretty much no use at all to make people act like chickens. But and this is something that you do, there's a significant therapeutic use of hypnosis and hypnotic patterns, where you can help people to transform, as Milton said, transform their life or their state that they're in.
Yes, I think in conversational, there are 2 parts of it. So normally I would always ask permission before I do hypnosis with anyone. Yeah. But obviously people that come to my office, they already paid to do hypnosis, so I don't really need to ask them. Yeah. And so the hypnosis really begins when they come in. Yeah. And you work with conversational hypnosis to give them more resources to be able to deal with something. Yeah. But I don't do only conversational hypnosis, because people that come here, they expect to
be sat in the chair.
Exactly. And it's kind of like it's selling them on it that it really works, because they believe, I really was in hypnosis, I was really gone, my arm really stuck in the air, I couldn't open my eyes, and all those things. Yeah.
Which is something, I think it's a part of really convincing someone that they need to have the belief that wow, this
Exactly.
really worked. Especially because I find that sometimes people think that when they're in a trance, they won't be able to hear or remember
Yes.
stuff. Well, as you mentioned, you hear very well, and you keep on hearing everything, and you're actually very alert about everything. And
Well, there are different depths of trance. So you have the very light trance,
Right.
obviously like driving car, you're still functionable, or
Yeah.
watching TV. And you have deeper levels of trance, and you have the so-called Esdale state, which is named after a British doctor who did a lot of work in that, because that's the really deep state where you can cut someone open and they won't feel the pain.
Yeah.
So, for example, with pain patients, I would get them so deep in order to cut through the pain.
Yeah.
And I have it with my my hypnotic gastric band patient clients, that the first few sessions aren't that deep.
Can you maybe very shortly explain what a hypnotic gastric band is?
The hypnotic gastric band is that it's a sequence of 4 sessions, and in the 3rd session they would get the suggestion that they have an actual gastric
Which is
band
like
surgery.
a rubber band around your stomach, right?
Yeah,
bit
something
crudely
crudely, yes.
stated,
It's
but-
like you kind of make a knot.
And this is
into
an
the
actual
stomach.
operation that people do, like an
Yes.
actual operation, but you do it without the operation. You just give
Yes.
them the suggestion
Exactly.
that they, from now on, have that rubber band around their stomach.
Yes, exactly.
And what is the effect of that? Because you've done that a lot of times now.
I've done it a lot of times.
a lot of times.
times. Well, it makes people eat less. It makes them feel that their stomach is
Because
smaller.
their unconscious kind of goes like, okay,
There's a gastric
Yeah.
band. I had this operation. The
Yeah.
amount of food I can eat is like as big as my fist.
yeah,
And they get the suggestion that the stomach is as small as a tennis ball.
yeah, yeah.
And so it makes them eat less. Funny enough, I have quite a few patients that had an actual gastric band or a bypass surgery, and after a few years they regain the weight, and then they come to me, and then they do the same thing hypnotically, which is kind of sweet, because you think, and there's some interest. It's actually the University of Nijmegen. You say that? How do you say-
Nijmegen. Yeah.
That's
Close
probably
enough.
the proper way to say it. They've done tests that the actual gastric band surgery, that after 15 years it fails with 68%
Yeah.
of the patients.
How come? Because your body kind of gets
Well, because
accustomed to it, or?
because people can always cheat their way, you know. You can, and then they find a way, like, okay, I can only eat small portions, and then they just throughout the day eat.
I used to have this friend of mine, she like those Magnum ice creams,
Yes.
right? And she went like, oh, do you know there's a pack of butter in one of those things? So now I eat the Magnum Light, which only has half a pack of butter in one.
But
so I can eat 2. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So yes, it's just a suggestion, like the example I brought with the students, where
Yeah.
it would give a black mark from just touching, with the suggestion somebody hit you there.
Yeah.
And that's the
And the
same
body
thing.
would respond by building up as if
Yes.
someone had hit you.
Exactly,
right?
yes. And you can, and they just they make it go away just as fast, which is kind of really weird, because
Yeah.
you think, oh, it takes weeks till the
Yeah,
body dissolved all the clotted blood.
yeah,
And so there it's the same, that they just get the suggestion that they have, when you go through a whole process of it. But there in the 3rd session, I have clients going so deep that they're really gone.
right.
And they really are completely gone. And I do that with pain
What
patients.
does that mean?
That means they don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
They have amnesia to what happened.
So
And they don't
how is that
remember.
different from sleeping?
Well, because the change still happens,
Yeah.
because they're still there. And even if I say,
I notice I've done you've done way more hypnotic work than I have, but what I found is in the few times that I put people in that deep of a state, that what I find is that they do still respond, but maybe
Yes.
very slowly, or like when I say like I had one person like, you'll turn, because it was like that, and I said like, you'll turn that way if you understood, and everything is in your unconscious now. And then it took a while, but then he very slowly went like
yes,
like that, but it was like it was like he was completely asleep,
Yes.
like and he didn't remember anything of that. Yeah.
yes. Well, I think the difference is, if you're sleeping deep at night,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody whispers to you, says, okay, I'll count till 5 now, and
Mhm.
at 5 you'll open your eyes,
Mhm.
and 1, 2, 3, and at 5
Mhm.
you wouldn't respond.
No.
Yeah, but in hypnosis, even if they're so deep, I wouldn't change my voice,
Mhm.
and even if when I end the hypnosis, I count till 5, and they're
Yeah.
all open their eyes, and they're
Yeah.
all, oh yeah, oh that was cool, that was gone.
Yeah.
But that happens when trust builds up. I
Yeah.
used to do stuff in one session. I don't do that anymore, because
Yeah.
I've realized that the more trust builds up, the more change happens. Like my cousin from Canada came over last year, and we just played around. He said, I want to try, what does it feel like? And just because we have this trust relationship, he was just gone like this. Or it's like our common friend Lisa, when she puts me into hypnosis, I go like, because I have just absolute blind trust. So the more, and that's,
I remember this,
yeah. Or the other day, another colleague of mine came, and we just like to experiment, try new stuff on each other and not on our clients. And she, just because I know her well, I know she's good, and I know I can trust her, I know she would never do anything stupid with me. She wouldn't make me do this, right? So I was really deeply gone, and then she started to work with me, and my brain in hypnosis says, oh shit, it was so nice to be so deeply relaxed, and now she makes me do work. And you just really, it's a really good feeling, and it's something that, and just like you say, we have so much stress and so much distraction. I think we need more of that. And you asked before the difference between hypnosis and meditation. It's slightly different brain waves. I'm not, you have the alpha, beta, gamma, and theta, or whatever, and they're just slightly different. But in hypnosis, the brain waves is you're just very receptive to things. But of course, you can always reject a suggestion. If somebody gives you a suggestion, or you're a duck or something, you can always say, oh, no way. Why would I want to be a duck?
I have this, we talked about this also, like in the courses we did together also. Sometimes you work with people doing exercises that don't have as much experience, let's put it like that. And then they start giving suggestions, and you go like, her. And I remember this, like someone had made me relax very well, but then the person started to do like the work and giving me suggestions, and I was like, oh no, this I don't want to have. And then I started doing my own stuff in my head, which was more productive. Well, and I could block out whatever.
Yes, and the one thing I realized, what I did at one point working with somebody, where I thought, oh God, that's really clunky, that's horrible. And I thought, no, but I want the change. So I want to have that change that we're working on. So no, I want to accept it. So even in the trance, you still have the power to decide, yes, even though the person I'm doing it with, I might not like the person, but I can still choose to have the change. Yes, because it's for me.
Sometimes I literally say this when I work with someone. I say like, it might very well be that I say something stupid or that doesn't work for you. Feel free to change it into whatever works for you.
Yes, absolutely.
And that helps often. So we've been talking about like doing the work when you have someone in a trance. What does that mean? What kind of work do you do with someone?
Well, work would be somebody who wants to do weight loss. Work would be somebody who wants to stop smoking, get over fears, get rid of pain, get over grief, all those things we all want to change, or wants to become better at CrossFit, or better at, you have the getting rid of stuff and getting more of stuff, like performance enhancement, sports people, executive that want to be more focused, that want to be more goal-oriented, want to be more go-getters. That are all the things what would be the work.
But what specifically would you do with them? Like, without getting into it, because we can speak weeks about the different hypnotic techniques there are. But can you give somewhat of an insight of what would be something that would be going on during this work with someone?
Well, it always depends on the person that comes. But for example, I had an entrepreneur coming who had his own IT business, and he wanted to kind of, he felt stuck. I mean, he had his business, he'd paid his bills, but he was not able to grow it, and he had like this mental block of growing it. And then we did what we learned with Richard Bandler, the timeline thing, and where
this is very professional jargon.
Oh God,
the timeline thing.
The time,
but it's actually, I teach people not to take the jargon too serious, because there are usually the people, I think Robert Dilts started doing a lot of this stuff, like making these complicated models and things, and very elaborate words and fancy sounding things, but it's not. Just
you can give it any
timeline thing. Go for it.
So this is basically where and I make people stand up for it. I don't let them do it in their mind. And this office is rather long, so they can stand over there.
So there's a length here, but it's also going like way that way.
Way down there. And so I make them stand over there and say, okay, you look into the future, and where is your 85th birthday? And so some people would have it right here and others would have it 2 kilometers down there where the big tree is.
Right.
And this guy, when I asked him, how does it look like? And he says, well, you know, it's going really up and then there's a plateau and then it goes on. So obviously he feels he's stuck because he has the feeling he's standing in front of a mountain.
Yeah.
And just working in this very, very light trance of flattening it out and making it go far and maybe far
But
away.
this sounds so, I mean, like, this sounds so weird in a way, like, okay, you ask someone how he imagines there is his future, and then that makes a change or a difference. How can it be that something this simple, like changing their perception of their timeline, which is a made-up thing,
Yes.
that everyone shares, which is weird. Like, it is made up, but then when you ask people about it, they go like, yeah, well, mine is like this.
Yeah.
But how can it be that something that simple works so well?
I think it's because our emotions are made up of the pictures we create. So if we have this whole virtual reality around us, how do we see things? We give stuff meaning, and we have our internal dialogue. And I believe, or from the research I've done, is that our emotions really come, they don't just pop up out of nothing. So we create our emotions.
Like, there's frustration. Where did that come from?
Yeah, it just kind of popped up. And so I create my own emotions by the way I do my self-talk. And we have, I think, and there are different models of that. Some say it's 50,000 thoughts and others say it's 275,000 words. So they probably had some psych student sitting there with a clicker. Oh, I had a thought. Oh my God.
Oh, that's a thought. That's a thought.
Exactly. So I really don't want to know how they got to those numbers.
Right.
But those pictures that we create and the words we say to ourselves, they create our emotions.
Yeah.
So if we imagine our future, it's like when we make those pictures of something really bad happening in the future, it makes us hopeless for the future. So if we believe tomorrow World War III will start, and it's something totally imaginary, you know, we can dig our own...
It was funny, around this Trump election thing, my girlfriend was reading a lot on the news things about that, and I was very busy, so I didn't have the time to read up on it. And every time we would be having dinner or whatever, she was going like, oh, did you know that Trump is doing this and this? And I was like, well, no, not really, not bothered.
Yes, and sometimes it's a lot better for us to be blissfully unaware of stuff like that.
Well, especially because a lot in the news, they make a profit when they scare people. So it's
well,
like...
Have you noticed all the pictures of Trump? He always looks horrible. He always looks like this, and they never have nice pictures of him. They always have those blurry, ugly pictures. And I feel kind of bad for the guy because nobody likes to see horrible pictures of themselves. But that's how they portray him, and that's how people see him. And he might be a totally, you know, warm and fuzzy guy. We will never know because the media portrays him that way.
He probably isn't, though.
No,
but
well, we don't
just to
know.
give you an example of how things can change just in your mind.
Yes, people, yes. And so this timeline thing is how we feel about the future determines how motivated we are. If we believe we're just going, it's an uphill battle and life is so hard and bad things always happen to me. If I have this as my base belief system, obviously I will never
because
even
he probably, before you even asked it, like, how is your timeline going, he probably unconsciously already had it sorted in that way that he was thinking of it going uphill.
Yes, and the timeline is just a representation of how he views his future.
Right.
And if he views his future as an uphill battle and it's really tough and economy is bad and I have a Swiss company, I'm so much more expensive than, you know, 1 kilometer across the border, it's half price. And if you already have that worldview, it'll never work. Right. And just by changing his inner picture of his future, it made a big difference for him. Yeah.
So and then doing that in hypnosis makes it easier to make the actual change because the change, like, he can consciously think, oh, okay, I'll think the future is better, which you see with a lot of positive thinking people, right? Or when they read The Secret, and then they go like, no, I have to think it's all going to be well, and I'm going to be so happy. Yes. But when you do it consciously, the change is not as significant, and usually doesn't happen.
Well, it's a superficial thing, and
Yeah.
I can pretend to be happy, and
Yeah.
oh, there's a big check coming in my
Yeah.
mail, but it's not coming if I don't do anything for it.
And it's your unconscious that steers you to actually take action and do stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's why the change has to be on an unconscious
Yes.
level, where hypnosis helps you to
Yes.
get to that level.
Absolutely.
And what would be your advice for people maybe they're not like way overweight or smoking or whatever the stuff is that you help people with, which I actually love. The bin back there, I don't know if you can see it, but it's one of the only bins I think you can find with a packet of cigarettes in there where there's still at least one cigarette in there.
Yeah.
Is this something you do more often, that you let them trash their last cigarettes, or?
Well, when
there is a packet of cigarettes in there, so in the bin.
Yes. Well, that's just a client that came to stop smoke, and we did the stop smoke session, and I asked her, do you still have cigarettes? And she said, yes. I said, well, do you want to yeah, what do you want to do with it? She said, oh yeah, keep it, it's for you, and there's still one cigarette in.
Yeah.
And that's for you. And if you open the package, there's a cigarette, and the lighter is inside. Yeah. Because she
Which
doesn't
says
need
something about their determination, because I speak a lot to people that say, yeah, I'll stop smoking soon, but I'll finish this pack first.
Yeah.
And then they borrow from friends afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's different than when you're really determined that you'll stop smoking.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, and also if you just look at the stop smoking, you have certain people that believe, and they come here and they believe they have to stop forever.
Right.
And then again, you have others, oh, I just really want to smoke 1 or 2 cigarettes a week.
Right.
And it actually does work, because I know from my stepmother, she used to smoke a pack or 2 a day, and then she just reduced to a point where she would smoke 1 or 2 cigarettes a day. And then at some point she had to throw the stale packs away, because she would only smoke when people were over, and she would just have it as a social thing.
Yeah.
And my sister is the same. She only smokes when she's with certain people that smoke. That might be twice a month.
Yeah.
So it's the belief system that makes, okay, do I have to stop?
I like this. Richard says a similar thing on people with drinking, right? When
Yes,
he says
AA.
with AA, that people go to the Alcoholics Anonymous and they go there every day, and they have to go there every day, and even if they didn't drink for 30 or 40 years, they
I'm
still
an
go.
alcoholic.
Yeah, even though I didn't drink for 40 years. And then he says the AA becomes an addiction.
Absolutely.
And I think he talks about the power of meh.
Yeah.
Like seeing a drink and going, meh, I could have it, or food for that matter. If you like to eat more healthy, that you can look at something that's fatty and you used to like it when you used to look at it, and you can go now like, meh, and you can leave it or take it. It's take it or leave it. Yeah.
That's where I think where you can absolutely use the power of watching TV is, I tell my clients, okay, you want to lose weight, you like, and hey, we're in Switzerland, we have the best cheese, the best chocolate.
Lederach.
And
or Sprüngli.
yeah, well,
it's the 2 brands, Lederach and Sprüngli.
Yeah. Well, and if I tell people, I said, you can brainwash yourself to dislike all that stuff by just watching all those food documentaries that came out, be it Food Matters, Hungry for Change, all those. And you go into Netflix, and then you have this little line, people that have watched this, and you can go from one food documentary to the next. Yeah. And you can brainwash yourself to the point where your body will not respond. And I remember I did that, where I watched all those documentaries. My husband and with the kids, we went to McDonald's. I was sitting there, I was drinking mineral water, and my body did not react to the burger like it's food. It was like a piece of plastic. Yeah. And that is just, it's all in here. And
you have this, if you want to, there's this lovely video also on YouTube of this McDonald's burger, and they leave it like for 7 years or something, and it doesn't change. Yes, exactly. Which is weird if food doesn't change after 7 years.
Yes, and the guy says it's the bread is still soft. Yeah. It smells exactly like, and it's 25 years old. 25, or something. Yes.
Really? Ah, wow.
He has the oldest live McDonald's burger in his basement.
It's alive.
It's alive. Yeah, no, and it doesn't come alive.
But maybe this is something, because and then we'll round it up. But people thinking about brainwashing as something that is negative, and especially if you say it like brainwashing, it sounds very negative. but maybe talk about this because it's also in the Milton quote. But if you like it or not, you're being brainwashed anyway.
Absolutely.
By your surrounding, by your parents, by
your
everything,
self-talk.
by your self-talk. So you better decide on what brainwashing you want and make it positive stuff that helps you to do the behavior you want. Maybe you can talk, or maybe you have something else, but maybe talk about the story of the monkeys, the experiment they did in the time that you could still experiment with monkeys without people getting completely angry.
Yes,
which I think is a good thing, to get angry when people do these types of experiments, but...
Well, there are actually two experiments that I really like to tell my clients. One is the monkeys, and the setup is that you have 5 monkeys in a big cage, and
this is an actual experiment,
that's
right?
An actual experiment they did. So what they did is they took 5 monkeys, put them into a big cage. They had a small kind of step ladder, and above the step ladder they had bananas hanging. So monkeys are smart animals, so they know they climb up the step ladder and they can get the bananas. So what they did, they set up the whole thing, and then they left the monkeys be. So the monkeys looked at the step ladder, wanted to go up, and as soon as the first monkeys touched the step ladder, they came with a big fire hose and they drenched all 5 monkeys. And so that happened.
This is why people got angry at the experiment.
And so they did that a few times, and then no monkey would touch the step ladder. Then they took out one monkey and replaced it with a new monkey who never saw any of this. Now the new monkey is a smart one too, so he looks at the step ladder, at the bananas, and wants to go there. But as soon as he has the intention of going towards the ladder and touches it, the other monkeys come and beat the shit out of him. And then one after the other, they replace all the monkeys, and as soon as somebody goes to the step ladder, the others would beat him up. And then you have a set of 5 new monkeys who've never been drenched, who've never experienced anything negative from this step ladder, and they still would beat up any monkey that would try to get the banana through the step ladder. And so often we don't know why we do something, we don't know why we're afraid of something, we don't even realize why we have a certain habit. Just because it's this hearsay thing, we know we shouldn't do it, but we don't know why. So if the monkeys could speak and you would interview the monkey, say, why don't you go to the step ladder? He would say, I don't know. My brothers beat me up when I try to touch it, so I warn my other brothers not to go there. That's one experiment that shows how learned stuff, we just accept certain things as truth without even questioning it. Another experiment I really, really love which is a very bad experiment for the animals, is where they took this little doggy, they built a dog-sized maze.
This is what you get from reading really old science books and hypnosis books. These things were still going on then. They did some horrible things with kids too. But they took this dog, and this is about really learned helplessness. And we all suffer from this at times. So they took this doggy and they put him in a maze, and the bottom of the maze was a kind of a metal mesh. So they would put him in there, and they would send electric shocks into the floor, and the doggy would get electric shocks into the paws. And obviously he would shoot and run out of this maze and try to get out. So they did it a few times, and every dog will have the same response: pain in the paws, hit and run, right? And then they put a harness onto the doggy and tied him up so he couldn't move. Oh gosh.
Oh God, yes. So they put the doggy in there, they tied him up, he couldn't move, they would send in electric shocks. He would struggle a few times, and obviously, and at some point he would accept the pain. So at the point after they did that, I don't want to know how often, he would just accept the fact that he can't escape the pain.
Even when the harness was off?
And then the next step is, as you say, they would take the harness off, they would put the doggy in, and they all expected, they gave him the shock and he would run. But he didn't, he would just accept the pain. And I think a lot of people in today's world, we just accept the pain because we don't know any better, and we don't know how to change or how to get out of this pain. And this is where NLP, the work you do and the work we both do, can do so much, because people have this learned helplessness, and if you make them aware, and there's this, that they actually can move, they're not tied up anymore, they're not kids, they don't need to They maybe had an alcoholic mother, they maybe have been beaten up as a kid, but they're not a kid anymore. Now you're this bulky 2-meter tall guy, you can beat the thing out of anything. You don't need to accept being put down. And if you get people out of the trance of the electric shocks,
helplessness.
And that is really what they've learned. There's this nice analogy in the Indian tradition. It's the same thing with an elephant.
I know that one.
That you know that one. You have this young elephant, you take the young elephant and you tie it to a pole. And it's just a pole like this hit into the ground.
But it's a tiny elephant. So.
It's a tiny elephant, so he tries to pull, and obviously he won't be able to get the pole out. Now the thing is, this elephant grows up, and when he is a grown-up elephant and he can lift up entire trees with his trunk, and he could easily pull out this little pole, he will never try to pull out the pole to get out, because as a baby elephant he learned, I'm stuck to this pole and no matter what I do I won't get away. So he'll keep this habit of this belief that he can't pull out this pole, which is just so small, but the huge tree he can pull out. And again, it's the same thing, the learned helplessness. We believe there is a wall. We believe so strongly into our own limitations that we're not able to break through. And once we get rid of that perceived limitation, be it with the timeline or with changing the submodalities or anything that you do, and it's all the same process, no matter if it's working people who want to get better, who want to communicate clearer, or if it's people wanting to lose weight or stop smoking or get over fears or handle their pain. And we've all had that. Like for example, if you take pain, and I love that example. We've all had the thing where we had a paper cut. And we're all office people, right? So at some point you had this paper cut, and you come home at night and you realize, crap, there is this paper cut and it really hurts. But the whole day you had it and you never even realized when it happened or that you had it, and then afterwards it'll hurt for days because those little buggers are worse than any kind of cut. So you've been in this kind of pain-reducing trance the whole day until you become aware of it. And that's the whole thing. A lot of things aren't there until you become aware of it. And that's where you can use hypnosis for yourself by just focusing on the right things, brainwashing yourself with food documentaries, brainwashing yourself with any kind of material that you want to internalize, be it being an entrepreneur, being a better communicator. And if you just focus on stuff, how to become better, and if that becomes your focus, like they say, I don't know who coined that phrase, where focus goes, energy flows. Yes, and this is really the thing. So you can self-hypnotize by reading, and if you just keep on reading all the, biographies of great businessmen, of great orators, it'll make you go more into that direction automatically, because it does something, because hey, if he can do it, maybe I can do it.
And this is already hypnosis in a way, because you're hypnotizing yourself to understand that the things they do, you can do also.
And then if you just use hypnosis as a tool to kind of break through certain barriers, it'll just make it go a little faster. And then both together work really awesome if you have like the entrepreneur I was working with. And okay, the timeline of the future is straightened out, okay, and now list your goals. Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve in life? What are the steps you can take? So we just took one goal and we broke it down into bigger chunks, and then the bigger chunk into even smaller chunks until
putting that in his unconscious future as well as his conscious future, but also in his unconscious future.
Yes, and you do both. You do it in hypnosis and you do it awake. So we have the goals and we take them into the hypnosis session and we work, and then you have a very, very swift change. To the point where people only come to one session and say, forget the rest, you fixed it. Which is kind of neat, but sometimes it's really weird.
Well, it's possible when you work with the unconscious. What would be your advice for maybe, because you've given so much stuff already up until now, and I think this is especially because in hypnosis there's so much layers and things that it's probably worthwhile to watch this video maybe again once or twice to get out more of what's in here, because Gwen has been giving quite a few things here. what would be maybe one message or thing you want to give to people that maybe they're not like completely overweight or addicted to smoking or whatever, but just want to build a career, be just a bit more confident, communicate a bit more smoothly? What would be your advice for them?
Well, for one thing is really to focus on what you want, and don't focus on what you don't want, but focus on the stuff you want and where you want to go there, and just think about the steps it would take to get there, and find yourself people who've done that or done something similar. And just become aware that if it's possible for them, they're not that much smarter than you are. They're not any way better or anything. If they can do it, you can do it. And if you just focus on the one next step that you can take in that direction, and there is no right or wrong step. If you just focus on that, it'll make it a lot easier for you to, at some point, buy into it and really go for this and make it happen. And keep on reading and listen to Jasper and watch the stuff he's doing, because he talks about being humble, but if I would really have trouble in something, he's the one guy I would go to help me to get clarity on something and work on the things you want to achieve, because he's the guy who really has the knack of going through, okay, how do you see that, and how can we adjust the submodalities, the inner picture, how can we break through that or see a way to get there. And the way I know he teaches, and he's done a workshop for some of my clients, was last year you did that workshop, and just the feedback I got from the people who attended, there was one evening, it just was a very short course he did. Just the feedback I got was phenomenal, because it did so much for them, and just the model that you invented and introduced has been this big wow moment where they said, oh wow, this is really awesome, this really helps.
Well, this is similar to what you said, like sometimes you can do in one session, it's just one change or one idea that changes a lot. So
yes, it's just this, wow, yeah, there's electricity, it's just this one thing, wow, it really works. Yeah. And I think if people just experience, and if they come to you and they work with you and they experience, oh, I can break out of this kind of job despair, I create the motivation that is in my head, I make my future. If they just experience it once with you, that they have the power to change their state, I think that really does a lot. And that is something, I think you're a master of. And you hit the nail on the head there. I think that's one of the most important things that I do with people, even though they're not always conscious about it, that usually exactly what you just mentioned. Change the state. Exactly. That's usually the biggest difference for them. Yeah. Yes, and a lot of things matter. Like if I'm sitting in my dressing gown the whole day, hunched up in my big chair, and I can make myself feel really bad. Yeah, or I can, get dressed, make myself feel good, go to the spa, do
and
something
it's
good.
Simple stuff too. It's not that complicated.
No,
but it's actually doing it. And this is where hypnosis comes in, and this is why I love to have been able to share these insights of Gwen, because we've been talking a lot over the past few years, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to have a camera here so you can also learn a bit from this, because it's the unconscious processes that I work with on top of the things, maybe you've already been to a workshop of mine or whatever, or you've seen other videos on this channel. A lot of it is like the conscious things, so you learn something or you get something out of it, but it's these things that we've been talking about in this interview, the unconscious level, that makes it stick. And that's something I sometimes tell people, because I'm relatively young compared to other trainers in the Netherlands. But I get this from colleagues there. They might be like 10 or 20 years older than I am, and they go like, how is it that you are already working with all these big companies, and that they're not just hiring you once, but hiring you again and again and again? And I'm humbled by that, because I'm like, well, I still have a lot to learn. But I think the reason why is because I work also on that deeper level that we've just been talking about. It's not just theory, or it's not just a presentation of 45 minutes or 3 hours. There's stuff changing underneath. So I think if you want to get most out of this video, definitely, if you want, check it out maybe again and maybe again to get some of the other layers that are in here, especially when Gwen is speaking and giving her metaphors, because
I think the one big thing with you is not only, I mean, yes, you might be young of age, but over the past year since I've known you, you've done a lot of courses, you've been doing a lot of learning, and you're really, if I may use that term, anal about really mastering a certain skill. And I haven't met anyone else who is willing to put the time and the effort this guy has put into really mastering something. I mean, seriously, if I may just share your secrets, I mean, he seriously would sit down and he would write down something like a speech Richard Bandler gave, and he would really write it down and analyze
literally,
it. And you would have the tonality. You showed me the thing where you had your shorthands for the different tonalities, voice going up, voice going down, pause, no pause. And I don't know anyone else who would really go through the pain this guy here went through to really learn this stuff. So obviously he's one of the best, and apart from the really big ones like Richard Bandler, I don't know anyone else who is as good as you are.
That's why I like it. The same goes for you. There's a reason why I come over to Switzerland so often, because I mean it's a trip,
chocolate.
But it's also the chocolate. I always have to take chocolate for my girlfriend when I visit here in Switzerland. But it's rare because it's the same thing I see in you. But then there are not that many people that spend so many hours in learning. So it's nice to.
Well, this is the one thing for your clients there is if you want to go ahead, study the subject. If you want to become the best ice cream maker, study ice creams.
Apart from what Gwen has been telling you, you don't have to do training with me. You can do training anywhere. Just do it and just read the books. There's so much stuff out there online. Not just this channel. You can watch all the videos. You can watch any channel. Just watch the stuff. There's so much out there.
And just be careful if this whole esoteric stuff is not your cup of tea. Find yourself, because I used to, and I remember when my son was young, we went to a school psychologist, and she was into NLP, and I thought this is just total BS what she's doing, because it just was so.
I allow the bullshit on my. You can say bullshit on my channel.
So it was just. I just thought, oh, this is such so much bullshit she's giving me, and why am I listening to this unqualified, where she wasn't even a psychologist, she was just a counselor, and I thought, oh God, all this NLP crap, because the stuff you hear so often is just so shallow, or the people who do it, they don't even know what they're doing, or they put those big courses, and they have those big fluffy words, and then you meet some of those trainers and they say, oh, have you done anything with NLP? And you say, yeah, I did my master with Richard Bandler, and they really get scared of you because they think, and they're right to get scared, because you can just cut through the bullshit they're selling you with all this weird stuff. And I have a friend, she did her NLP practitioner here, and she's learned stuff where they have like guided dreaming and all this.
I have a guy I work with in the Netherlands, Joost van der Leij. He's also a trainer in the Netherlands, and he trained with Richard also. And he's very much on the quality control of the Dutch NLP trainings. And he at one point got really angry at one institute. What they did was they went out with the guys in the practitioner course, went to sea, and went to stand like knee high in the water of the ocean and scream at the sea, because this would kind of enable them to be more manly. And he was like, this is nothing to do with NLP.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. So if you do a course, look for someone who really is a straight kind of person that has not only the qualification but also doesn't have those really weird fluffy ideas in their head. And
do a workshop first. And again, it doesn't have to be me, or if you're from Switzerland, it doesn't have to be Gwen. It's not about that. It's just do a workshop first, because then you'll be very quickly you'll start noticing if someone is bullshitting, or if someone knows what they're talking about. So go for a workshop first before you sign up for a big course. Yeah.
And it's same with a hypnotist, because
Yeah.
I know in Switzerland and in many countries there is no one license for hypnotists. So anybody can, I tell my clients always, you can go home right now, you can put a sign on your door and it says hypnotherapist, because there is no rules for it. So always look at the biographies of the people, where do they come from? And so often I get clients that come from another hypnotist and they say, oh well, they wanted to put magic stones onto my throat to get over trauma or something. Or on the other hand, they just have one single tool because they did one class and they don't keep on learning, and they just did maybe their hypnosis class 5 years ago or 20 years ago, and they just rehashed the same thing. So always look for people that keep on learning, and science has taught us so much over the past 2 years, and we know so many things we didn't know before. That if you just
as you say, even in the last few years, there's been so many developments.
Yes, say neuro-science and so many things we know now that maybe were fluff before, but now we have solid proof, because we can look into Jasper's brain and we can see a single neuron shooting, and we can see how stuff happens in the brain. So we can see why certain images do something to us, or why we react if or not we have rapport. So there are certain things we can that are so easy to learn today. So if you find someone, go to someone who is qualified and who knows their stuff, and doesn't just get it from some self-help book that they got at the flea market or something.
Well, thank you very much. I think it was very, very interesting. I always like these talks, so I'm happy that you could share this this time. And again, I think you should watch it again.
Yes.
This one, because there's so many more layers in here. So
well,
thank
especially
you so much for
with
sharing.
him, you never know what he packed into what he's talking. You might start doing this
at one point this evening, or telling people about it, and they will go.
Exactly.
You'll find out. Thank you very much, Gwen. And,
thank you so much for doing this with me.